Congratulations, Keyspire, judging award winners and how slow and steady wins the race. And it's much preferable over the millions and millions of dollars being lost from being overleveraged too fast, too soon, wrong, bad timing, investing. All that and more on this week's Truth About Real Estate Investing show for Canadians. My name is Erwin Cito, host and producer of this show since 2016. I'd like to start off by apologizing to this week's guest, Tim Tsai, as we couldn't get this episode out before the InvestEd annual conference, for which I was a judge. I was the category for a category of award winners for investors who'd achieved different levels of financial freedom. Financial freedom would be defined as having at least earning regular cash flow above one's monthly expenses, and then enough to replace, say, a job, and then enough to level three would be to, never worry about money again when you're doing all sorts of fun and crazy things. The event was excellent. I was there last night. That's probably why I sound a little hoarse and I'm a little bit tired. And again, it was great. The energy in the room was fantastic. Many of the award winners were talking about how it's more than just a community, the Trust Your Talent community. It is much more like a family. And yeah, it was really impressive. I can't recall being in such a small room where people were so close and supportive of one another. And having reviewed the award-winning criteria, I reviewed again applicants. I reviewed about at least a dozen applicants who have achieved a level of financial freedom. All very impressive. So if you haven't checked out Trust Your Talent, I definitely recommend that you do. And if you haven't, listen to this episode, this week's episode, as Tim Tsai, one of the co-founders, will be our guest of the show. Before we get to Tim, I want to congratulate Keyspire for another successful event. I was at the Keyspire Summit where they had the keynote speaker, Shaquille O'Neal, and he's such a nice guy. I'll always remember the words that he said. He wants to be remembered as like Shaquille O'Neal was a nice guy. That's how he wants to be remembered. Um, more for me, more importantly, keynote speakers are wonderful. But I like to connect with people on the ground. And the one nice thing about Keyspire members, from my experience, is there are so many really, really nice people there. The coaches, the staff, their partners or sponsors, all so many nice people. I had dinner with about 60 of them over the weekend. The feedback on our and then of course them being in kind, the feedback that Keyspire members are giving on our efforts to make USA investing easy as possible were well recognized and received. My friend Scott Dillingham, owner of Lend City USA and Lend City Canada, he's dual citizen, so he's a mortgage brokerage both in the US and in Canada. And he had a booth too. And as you'd expect, real estate investors who had analyzed deals in both Canada and in Canada, they understand when we show them numbers, what's available in the States, and how mortgage financing is basically infinite. As long as you can find a deal, you can get a mortgage. You don't have to personally qualify. Anyways, yeah. Without folks like Scott, it would not be easy without a team. And we at Share and Lend City can combine, help a lot of people buy a lot of properties in the States. Scott, and on behalf of Share, I can say that we're excited to help more Keyspire members and members of any community, really. We don't discriminate. We can help any investors from any community and organizations invest in the USA. Speaking of investor organizations, we have the co-founder of Trust Your Talent, Tim Tsai, on the show. It's been 2 years since he's been on the show, but members of Tim, people he's personally coached and mentored, including the 150 plus folks who've achieved some level of financial freedom, uh, and that's a lot of people. That's a really impressive track record for an organization that's only existed for 5 years. Tim and co-founder Ray have directly coached many of these folks, including past guests of the show, Vince Lee and Brooke Shang. Uh, and now they're both now coaches of Tim and Ray's group, Trust Your Talent. So Tim's back on this week's show to share what's worked in his own portfolio, including what has not worked in his career. When he saw red flags and was able to avoid damage with one of the very well-known mortgage brokers out there who's in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Unfortunately, many did not catch those red flags. And of course, many individuals have lost hundreds of thousands, some millions of dollars. Private lending in small towns on high leverage investments, too much, too fast, too complicated investments. However, Tim's members have survived. That's why I'm having him back on the show. If you have successful clients during this period of real estate winter, as they call it, I want to hear how you did it. And that's why Tim's back on the show. And I met dozens of really happy people among Tim's community at Trust Your Talent at the Invested Gala. Now, about Tim. After retiring himself at the age of 30, Tim began to pursue another goal and passion of his, helping those who are committed to achieving financial freedom do the same. To this day, Tim continues to be an active investor as he believes in investing is a lead by example venture. With the investment he made in his own financial education, Tim became financially free in 2 years, 25 months to be exact. After his first training, in the past few years, Tim has built cash flowing portfolios in Canada, US, and UK using a variety of strategies. Income properties, lease options. For most, that's usually called rent to own, both in residential and commercial. Creative financing, of course, flipping, wholesaling, infill development, mobile home parks, etc. Now, for to get a hold of Tim, probably the best place is his website, trustyourtalent.ca, and he's quite available on social media. Tim Tsai, that's Tsai, Tim Tsai. You can find him on Instagram. He's got well over 10,000 followers. Check him out and please enjoy the show. Hi, Tim. What's keeping you busy these days?
Paying it forward keeps me busy. Traveling a lot keeps me busy.
And looking young.
No, it's the Asian genes. You can relate.
I don't know. We're landlords in different provinces, so I've developed a lot more gray hair, and I'm sure you have those conversations with your clients all the
Yeah.
time. The difference between
Yeah.
investing in Ontario versus Alberta.
I like how you said it though. And also for me, there is definitely a fundamental difference between landlording versus investing. I prefer to be an investor more than being a landlord.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna save that for a little bit. Now,
Yeah.
so for listener who doesn't know who you are, can you tell us a bit about yourself and trust your talent?
Yeah. So I actually started investing. I would use that word very, very loosely back in 2004 because that was my very first property and I didn't manage to keep it and became what I think a lot of people would call an accidental landlord or an organic landlord. Because when I was moving to my second property, I was able to keep it and rent it out. And so that journey started in 2004. However, the real turning point for me that I always share is that I started to get myself and educated on different investing strategies in real estate at the beginning of 2010. So for nearly 15 years now, I've become a professional investor, as we call ourselves, leveraging real estate and other asset classes now since then to build my portfolio, my income streams, and wealth. And I was
Mhm,
able to actually retire myself 25 months after I started getting myself trained. And
mhm.
so, I mean, that date was July 25th, 2012. And I was able to walk away from a soul sucking, health impeding job in July 2012. And in 2014, I was actually recruited to become a trainer and a mentor with this little organization called Rich Dad Education here in
Little.
Canada. Little, and was able to travel around the globe, teaching people around the world on financial education, leveraging real estate as the main asset class to create income and wealth.
Mhm,
And at the end of 2019, I actually came out and started my own training academy that is Trust Your Talent Academy now. And we're nearly 5 years old. And it is a passion project for me because through my own personal journey and my time with Rich Dad, and before they pull away from the market, I realized that I had some soul searching to do because I always tell people that, it's great that, you've achieved financial freedom. When I did that, I was so proud of myself. However, when I achieved financial freedom, what was I doing? I was watching TV, watching movies, playing video games, playing with my dogs, wanting to go out for lunch with my friends, but they were all working, going to
mhm,
the mall by myself. I realized that within a couple of months of declaring financial freedom and not having to go to work every single day, I
mhm,
was actually starting to get a little stifled and almost depressed because I felt like, hang on a second, I worked so hard to build my portfolio to free myself from a soul sucking job. And now it feels like I've lost meaning and purpose.
Hmm.
And so I think that was a really also a turning point for me to go, you know what? I really enjoy sharing my experiences and teaching others. And that's why when the Rich Dad opportunity came up, I said yes in a heartbeat to continue to give back. And I've been doing that now officially for about 10 and a half years because I started my journey with Rich Dad back in February 2014. So here we are.
I said a mouthful there. So one of the reasons I reached out to you to have you back on the show is we're recording this September 2024. It's it's a pretty dark time for our community. Not so much for like your clients or my clients, because we kind of kept things, on the I like to call I get criticized for saying boring,
Yeah.
but I don't know, call it long term investing for cash flow.
Yes.
Like I
Yes.
call that boring versus the folks who tried to get exciting. And part of it, I'm sorry, I won't say exciting, but folks who like high leverage developments, aggressive investing, a lot of hard money borrowing, a lot of hard money, a lot of hard money loans, and expensive rates from like 6 to 17. A client of mine was literally just offered a 25% interest rate on a prom note on a commercial office building in Burlington, Ontario, right?
Wow.
So like, how do you run a business when you're paying 25%? Anyways,
You
my
know,
point is that I'm friends with a lot of your coaching students and who are now progressed on to coaches, and I don't know their books exactly, but their investments seem extremely sound, right? I've been around long enough to know what a sound investment looks like, right?
yes.
So, what has kept your community and your members out of trouble while we are in the middle of real estate winter? And like,
Yeah.
there are literally some people of hundreds of people out there who've lost like probably six figures.
Some even seven, as you
Oh
probably
yeah,
already
some
know
even
too.
seven. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what's kept our community safe? And I think I really echo with what you said. I mean, I don't know if boring is the right word. I think it's just slow and steady. And it really starts from our induction process because, we get people to come to our 3-day master investor workshop first, usually. And during those 3 days, we really download a lot of mindset about money because I always say we are a financial education academy first and foremost. We've just identified real estate as one of the best and oldest or tried and true asset class
Mhm.
to demonstrate the principles of what is money, how money works, how to make it to work, and how to make it work harder. So those are usually the four different stages. And the reason why we like real estate is because it's typically compared to most other asset classes, it's the slowest moving asset class, if you will. And
Mhm.
so that's why, the average person really, if they do it right and they do it diligently, I always say that it would be pretty hard for you to screw it up, even if you
Yeah.
wanted to years later. And so I guess we really drill that down. And funny thing is, I don't think a lot of people do that. When people even come to our 3-day workshop, I think we ask people to leave probably 5, 10 times during the first day because we will say, this is not a get rich quick thing. If you want something get rich quick, the door's on the way out. Make sure you ask for a refund. This is not going to be the right path for you. And throughout the entire day, we just keep emphasizing on the fact that, hey, you know what?
Mhm.
We're gonna even the case studies, done by our existing students, past students, our trainers and mentors. We want you to know that it all took us time to get to where we are. And so the other thing is, TYT right now is almost 5 years old. And next weekend, we're running our fifth annual conference. And every conference, we have an awards night. And I know, a lot of people have awards night as well. And I can dive into, sharing with criteria, but I won't because I just want people to know that we screen every single application and we vet every single supporting document to back up their claims very diligently. However, the whole point behind all of that is our first year, our first year as in Treasure Talent's first annual conference in 2020, and we all remember kind of what was happening. We had four award winners. And all this is actually on our website as well. Second year, we had eight winners. Third year, we had 13. Last year was the fourth year, we had 23. This year, next weekend, we're giving away 54 different awards from volume of business, different markets, different strategies, financial freedom, community leader, and people that are leveraging creative financing strategies and yet still learn how to build in the right process and clauses to keep everybody safe.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like that's what we do. And so, 5 years later, we finally got to the 54 awards range from four the first year. And it took some time. And honestly, last year I was hoping that we would have more. But the point is, it's slow and steady wins the race. And at the same time, though, not everybody needs to do buy, rent, and hold or buy, rent, and pray in the worst case scenario. We always show people the different strategies depending on, the different income buckets that they need to
Hmm.
feed into. So.
Yeah, I'm just looking at your application responses for the awards, and can't wait to dig into it. It's long. Wow, some of these answers are huge. So someone
Yeah.
else is going to proof the documents. I don't have to proof the documents.
No, you're there to endorse them because they've already been vetted. So when we
Ah, thank
vet,
goodness.
yes. No, no, no,
Yeah, I
you're
want to
not
thank you
vetting
again
them.
for the
Yeah.
honor to be a judge for your awards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of
and I
course.
plan on being there for the awards ceremony as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, I was just talking to Francis just yesterday,
Oh
our
yeah.
friend,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, I plan on being there and
Amazing.
maybe give him one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Good thing you
Cool.
left the names off because obviously I'd be biased.
Yes, we have to. We have to.
Now, so for context, for listeners' benefit, how big is the academy? How many members of the academy? What can you tell
Yeah.
us, just so people have an understanding?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we're still very boutique because, like, I mean, we are just shy of 500 total community members since day one. And we have that includes existing students and that it includes alumni as well. And out of those almost 500 people, we know we already have more than 150 people declaring financial freedom and financial independence. Just because they haven't won an award yet doesn't mean that they are not financial independent, just so you know. And
Right.
so that's the thing. We do define, the criteria to hit to be qualified
Hmm.
for, what
Hmm.
financial freedom is, what financial independence
Hmm.
is. And yeah, so that's our track record so far. Because I like to say we are quality over quantity. I would
Hmm.
rather have, 100 students and 100 students all have some sort of results and great results rather than 1,000 students and only 100 of them have results.
Right, right, right.
And that's why we're building it. Again, same thing. Our investing philosophy, slow and steady.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll trade anything to not have losing clients. You know what I mean? Which I wish a lot of these other organizations who are no longer with us, I wish they're willing to trade for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So just,
Before we're recording, sorry, did you want to say something there?
oh no, just, I was just going to say different philosophies and that would, that leads to different business decisions.
Yeah, and that actually led to the end of some of those businesses.
Yeah, basically.
When word gets out that you have, like 100+ failing students who are losing their shirts, then it's really hard to, create more business.
Mhm.
Before we're recording, you talked about the difference between financial independence and financial freedom. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate or define what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm gonna be kind of be using my hands because a lot of the times I usually have a bit of a flip chart or have a pre prepared uh PowerPoint slide, if you will.
That's
However, to
okay. That just
simplify
encourages folks to go
this,
to your
yeah,
YouTube channel, Truth,
there we
Truth
go.
by Real Estate Investing. This is also available on YouTube. You can see
There
Tim's
we
young, pretty face.
go. Well, I mean, you're married to Cherry. Cherry's an
Hmm.
accountant.
Hmm.
And so I always tell people, I mean, at the end of the day, it really comes down to balancing out what we call your wheel of wealth. And within the wheel of wealth, that wheel is composed of three different income buckets. And so those three income buckets are number one, active slash earned. The second one is what we call passive slash residual. And the third one is portfolio slash equity. And so a lot of the times, people are like, oh, how did you come up with this? I'm like, well, I cannot take credit for it because at the end of the day, this is exactly how the tax authorities tax us. And so, this is what Cherry talks about too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is different tax brackets for different types of income streams. And so when it comes to completing that wheel of wealth, then we start to identify which investing strategies leveraging real estate will feed into the different buckets.
Hmm.
And so, let's say, for example, most average Canadians, and I was one, for example, when I first got started, because I had a very, very high paying six-figure job. And I was one of those, good Asian kid. I would max out my RSPs. I would max out my TFAs. I would save as much money as possible. I would max out
Yeah.
my company stock options,
Right.
all those things.
Live frugal. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Live very frugally. And just, yeah. And so those are the things that I
Tim,
was
I'm
doing, but
just
it
gonna
really
interrupt you
didn't
there.
serve
This
me.
does not sound sexy
Yeah.
at all. When do we get to
Yeah.
Lamborghinis and private jets and yachts? I'm
Yeah, see,
sorry.
I know that's the thing, right? I know, I get it. I think this is why you and I are really on the same page about this. It's so hard to sell the real stuff because it's
Yeah.
not sexy.
It's not sexy. And then
Yeah.
the reality is people who have private jets, yachts, and Ferraris and Lamborghinis do not want anyone to know about them because
Yeah.
you're just inviting a home invasion, right? And literally
Exactly.
that is the millionaire next door. I've mentioned that many times on the show. Like,
Exactly.
please everyone read the book Millionaire Next Door. They're generally humble and they don't share their wealth publicly.
Exactly.
No, sorry,
Exactly.
continue.
And
Sorry, continue.
no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that because I mean, yeah, this is probably the biggest marketing challenge that we have as Trust Your
Hmm.
Talent.
Our styles as
And
well. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, for the first 3.5 years, we didn't pay for marketing. We didn't spend a dollar on marketing. It's not until the last year-ish people started to see Trust Your Talent, on social media because we're now actually paying for advertising.
Hmm.
Why? I kept saying I wanted to spend the first 3 to 4 years building results first. And
Hmm.
as I mentioned earlier, the numbers in terms of award winners and the results we have now, this is when we want to really pick up the megaphone and be like, you know what? We
Yeah.
can prove to you now that we have solid results. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're 18 or if you're 60. It doesn't matter if you came broke or you already come with, maybe a nice treasure chest of money. Everybody's financial goals are different. And as a result, your path is different. And I
Hmm.
think going back to what you were asking earlier, is I really do believe that like that path needs to be highly tailored. It's not one size fits all.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and anyways, so I think that was a big tangent. Going back to your
Yeah, because I
original
can't be Vince,
question.
a good friend of yours. I'm not moving to Edmonton and personal training and having giant biceps. That's not my future.
Yeah.
But like Brooke, who is also on the
Yeah,
show, still lives in the GTA, but she seems to be traveling
exactly.
a lot. Yeah.
She is. And that's the thing, right? That was her why, right? Her why is time, money, and location freedom,
Hmm.
and to spend, and having the resources to
Hmm.
travel and with family whenever, however, for however long. And so, again, coming back to your initial question, is that if we go back to looking at that wheel of wealth, the three different income buckets, we said that financial independence is when you are able to basically create income within the active and passive buckets for yourself. So you don't ever have to rely on somebody else giving you a paycheck to make a living. So that's independence.
Hmm.
And so within that, you have a lot of different strategies that you can use. And I always say that if you do it right, when you're creating passive income leveraging real estate, you should also be growing equity or portfolio income at the same time. And so that bucket in most cases should take care of itself unless you're going into development or infills, that kind of strategy. But then again, it is portfolio income until you decide on a proper exit. Because some people will build and hold, some people will build and sell. And so all of a sudden, when you build and sell, your equity now turns into active income. So, anyways, so that's the quick high level definition. And financial freedom means that you have enough passive income now that covers all of your basic day to day
Hmm.
expenses.
Hmm.
And that's what we call financial freedom number one, actually. There are a couple of different levels above that. However, when we say financial freedom number one, it's simply because most of us, we go to work so we can collect a paycheck so that we can actually pay our basic expenses. And those are usually housing, your transportations, your meals. You got to look pretty, buy some clothes, keep yourself clean.
Hmm.
And for most of us, devices,
Hmm.
as well as, utilities and Wi-Fi connections of sorts these days. And so
Mhm.
those are the basics, because in theory, if you have enough money coming in, even if you don't have to get up to go to work, you've theoretically freed up your 40 hours a week. I mean, 40 hours a week for work, that's, in my opinion, that's very less. That's very little. I used to work 80 plus hours a week when I was in my corporate job there. And so, again, that is just the first goalpost. The second goalpost for financial freedom for most people is what I call the income replacement. Because in Canada, we can make good money if we work really hard. However, it's hard to keep the money because of taxes. And so, like we've all learned, and you know what? I'm really jealous that you're married to an accountant, and a really, really savvy one for that matter. Because it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep that really matters.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, and financial freedom number two for us is your income replacement number for most people. And that's also why, we call most people's job a bit more of a golden handcuff,
Mhm.
right? They'll pay you just enough, even after taxes. You not only can pay your basic expenses, you have just a little bit of extra to maybe go shopping, maybe go out for birthdays, buy good Christmas presents, and go on vacations.
Mhm.
And that's why so many people just get trapped in there, and it's hard to walk away from it. And then we have what I would echo is what I think Tony Robbins also says this is the financial freedom number three in my definition, which is that do whatever you want, however you want, whenever you want, with whomever you want, for however long you want. And so I think, right before this, we were kind of chit-chatting a little bit. I constantly have vacations that are only scheduled for 2 weeks, and organically they turn into 3, 4 weeks, five. And in the summer, it was 2 weeks that turned into a 6 week getaway. And so, and that was the freedom that I worked really hard for. And the first, 6, 8 years were not sexy. And my last episode with you was me sharing how I lost $1 million cash overnight, having to debt service over time while I go through the legal process. But really, what that was I also lost $8 million in total equity that I could have built in my wheel of wealth in my entire career. And so, again, that is everybody kind of sees where we are at the current stage, but there's no such thing as overnight success, as you know.
Mhm.
We've all, eaten some dust to get to where we are today,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no
But
get
those
rich
are the
quick
basic definitions. Yes. No.
unless you were really smart and bought Bitcoin for $30 and bought a bunch of them. Could you imagine, like, hey, you should invest in this magic money,
Yeah. Magic money. Yeah.
magic internet
Well, I
money?
mean, wasn't there a little news yesterday on EFTs and Justin Bieber's $1.3 million chimpanzee that is worth what, $20 right now? Maybe not $20, maybe 20,000.
Oh, what is it? What are those things called? People don't even talk about those things
Yeah.
anymore. What's it called?
Yeah.
Uh,
Was it EFT, ETF, or some?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Uh, NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
NFTs, not
Yeah,
EFTs,
yeah, yeah.
NFTs. There we go.
I thought you were going to tell me
Yes.
about like the newest ETF for Bitcoin. Like, oh,
No, no,
NFT.
no,
Like
no,
the
no, 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 no.
NFT monkeys is exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
That's how you lose money
Ah,
at this time. This
yeah.
may not go well. Who knows?
Yeah.
Sorry, but so yeah, so you have track history of 150 somewhere around there, financially independent or financially free members of Trust Your Talent.
Yes.
I think that deserves a pat on the back,
Thank you.
and I'm
I'm very
sure
happy for them.
because there's not many organizations who can say that.
No,
Yeah.
no. And well, I mean, one of my favorite quotes of all time is Mahatma Gandhi. It's be the change you want to see in the world.
Hmm.
And I also came from a world where I thought I was surrounded by elite investors. Turns out they were all, people that just became really, really good at standing in front of the stage and telling people what to do when they're not doing it
Hmm.
themselves anymore.
Yeah.
And I think another differentiator really is, the fact that my entire training team, so my coaches, my trainers, my mentors, they are all chosen by myself and Ray. We're the founders for Trust Your Talent, and we were their mentors at one point in time. So we follow their entire career. We know their core values of people. We know their
Hmm.
why. We know their vision, and we share this. We share that passion to say, "Hey, you know what? we work really hard and we didn't know that this could happen, and we all made it happen. So we know
Hmm.
we can help more people do this.
Hmm.
And so again, I'm happy for the results that we've created, because the reality is, if I were to be somewhat crass about it, is that, I we don't have to be doing this. None of us need to be doing this. There are days where I'm like, you know what, life was a lot easier before Trust Your Talent came along, before we created
Hmm.
it. However,
Hmm.
it brings us joy, it brings us fulfillment and meaning, knowing that we're making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah,
And so,
150
yeah.
people, I'm sure, are very thankful you keep doing this.
Yeah,
Now tell me what strategies have worked. Like has your investment strategies changed through time, or
yeah,
like I don't know, how
yeah.
how far do you want to go back?
Whew. I don't have to go very far back. However, I will do a bit of a mix, just so that everybody understands, because I think this really goes back to your question earlier: is why is our community able to stay out of trouble when it seems like everybody is going down, and real estate investing has become a bit of a dirty phrase in the
Hmm.
country right now and
Hmm.
amongst the real estate investing community
Oh, and just to quickly
is
share, for
yeah.
example, a colleague of mine posted on his Instagram how just some simple data from I believe it was Kitchener, Ontario. A tenanted property sold for $70,000 less than the same property on average than a property without a tenant. The tenanted property would also take
Mhm.
significantly longer to sell
Yeah,
than the
yeah,
non-tenanted
absolutely.
property. Non-tenanted property
Yeah.
would be vacant or regular homeowner occupied. So based on the market right now in Ontario, is one of the worst things you can do. Well, if your goal is to devalue your property, is to rent it
Hmm.
out.
Hmm.
Isn't that nuts?
Unfortunately, yeah,
Yeah.
that is insane. And that's the thing, because again, you know, anyways, I mean, I think we can talk about this all day,
It's
but
absolutely nuts. It's absolutely
yeah,
nuts.
it
Yeah.
is, it is. And how does that even make sense?
Yeah.
And
And
so,
my point is
you
like
know,
what worked but in the past to get us where we are today. Like for the last, I think about 6 years at least, duplexing,
yeah.
like everybody duplex. Like I have lots of
Hmm.
duplexes still. Like I
Hmm.
have my clients own like 100 duplexes in
Yeah,
Ontario. Based on but based on what the market's telling us today, the market doesn't want it.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that the market doesn't want the properties themselves. The markets don't like to deal with any tenant issues, and therein lies the problem. Because you can buy as many properties as you want, but if it's not performing, it's not a true asset. You
Hmm.
still got to feed into it, and therefore we need paying tenants and good
Hmm.
tenants,
Hmm.
and that's the challenge. And so again, I think, I may have shared this with you, is our entire training philosophy, and it's a simple process, honestly. It's what we call your why, your goal, your SMP. So a lot of people talk about defining your why, because this is a different path and it's a very different type of mindset. However, I'm not going to go into that whole thing, why, and you got to find your why. And the thing about it, though, is I just want to be very straight sometimes with people, is that yes, we know money is not everything. However, money is one of the greatest tools that we all have access to and could create more of equally. And so it can just make life a lot easier. And so that goal is usually a financial goal. Whatever it is you want to accomplish, there's a reason why money was created, to help with, facilitate transactions of services and goods in the
Hmm.
modern life. And so that goal, it is definitely a financial goal. And through that financial goal, you need to figure out the right strategies that will help you. And I know, again, strategy has been a word in this industry that's also been, I think, bastardized a little bit over the last 5, 6 years now at this point. At
Hmm.
one point, Burr was a strategy. I'm like, no, Burr is just a simple process if you're an entrepreneur, regardless of asset class. You want to add value, because if you're not adding value at every turn as a business person, your business is not going to exist in the long term. And so, again, SMP, so strategy, pick your strategies that will contribute to your goal in a timely manner, because a goal without a deadline is just a dream, as we know. And so the strategies need to contribute to your financial goals. And then once you got your strategy solidified, then you go and choose the markets and the sub areas that will contribute to that, having the economic fundamentals, the business fundamentals, the demand, the tenancy rules that are in
Hmm.
favor of business people or investors that need
Hmm.
to leverage real estate as an asset class. And then the last thing is P. P stands for properties. And so even as real estate investors, we look at properties last. So many people, they look at properties first and they get emotionally involved. And one of the things that I always
Mm,
remind my entire community is, hey, are you investing to feed your bank account or your ego? And the funny thing is because as people, we always say seeing is believing. And real estate is good and bad for that same reason, is that some real estate can look hot and sexy,
mhm,
like the opposite of financial education and the fundamentals of money. And so they get carried away. They buy something because they think it's going to work or they hope that it's going to work. And this is why we know that a lot of undereducated or financially undereducated investors, they end up doing what we call buy, rent, and pray. They'll buy something and they'll just pray that, hey, the market is going to have some natural lift over time. They get great tenants that don't trash the properties and
mhm,
always pay rent on time. And the property itself doesn't cause them a lot of trouble and sleepless nights.
mhm,
And we all know that's not how life works.
mhm,
And so we completely reverse that. And we say, hey, you know what? If you got a solid goal, let's focus on the strategies that's going to get you there first. Free up your time and build your baseline. That's your safety net. And then if you want to play with other strategies in more markets and other markets, then go for it. At least when a deal goes sideways, you have your nesting eggs and you have your baseline. That is your financial freedom because then you don't have to worry about, oh my God, now I have to go back and maybe interview for another job and, get sucked back into that routine again. And
mhm,
so that I think is really the core of what we do. And we really drill that entire process and the mindset behind it
mhm.
with our community at all turns. And, does everybody stick to that 100% of the times? I'm going to say
No,
no,
no.
honestly. And just because, emotions get in the ways from time to time, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But this is probably why, at large, our community is safe. They continue to grow through the hard times, regardless. And I live in Alberta, as you know. And Alberta, until the end of last year, we've seen a sideways market for 10 years,
Mhm,
basically,
mhm,
because 2014 was when the last oil crash happened.
mhm.
And so, really, from 2014 all the way to now 2024, we've seen
Right.
basically the value went this way, and now we're kind of back at the same point. And so a lot of economists in the province is now saying, okay, we have at least 36 months of this wave right now that's going back up. And
Mhm,
we are in about month 9 of that 36 months mark, by the
mhm,
way.
mhm,
And the point though behind that is as educated investors, we always talk about some basic rules like making money in the buy, determining your ARV effectively. And so when a lot of buy, rent, and pray or undereducated investors are staying away from Alberta, Ray and I and our entire team were going gangbusters in this market. We were doing flips, we were doing holds because ARV was so predictable.
mhm,
So it became a matter of really identifying the viable deals that we can add value to so that we can exercise our exit strategy, whichever way we decide to go to,
mhm,
either hold or sell at the end. And so, it's and so to answer your question, I mean, our has have our strategies evolved? I'm gonna say yes, we've tweaked our approaches, but the overall big picture strategies, not so much.
mhm,
I got out of the Ontario market as a hold in 2016 completely. And at the same time, though, I had been lending into that market. So as a business, as an investor myself, putting Treasure Talent aside for now, we were able to capture a lot of these ups as private lenders. However, at the same time, not having to deal with tenancy rules. And same thing in BC. When we invested into BC
mhm,
during that last 10 years,
mhm.
we didn't hold anything in BC either because it's
Right, right.
also a lot more pro tenant compared to Alberta. And then we expanded back into New Brunswick. I mean, I started in New Brunswick back in 2013 myself already. And in between, we've bought and sold. However, we went back into New Brunswick as a market and grew in that market and hold properties in that market still. I mean, it's it's in the name of safety, let's put it that way. I always say that, when I have the chance to share, I know everybody likes one S word a lot, and that word is scale. I'm like, I also like an S word a lot. It's security. I want my portfolio. I want to know that I can protect everything that I worked so hard for first, especially having gone through the 2016 disaster that I did. Whenever I get a chance to teach and guide, it's okay. You know what? I need your foundation to be solid enough so that you don't even lose everything that you've
Mhm.
worked so hard for leading up to this point. The point is you can only get better from here. And I think it's a Chinese saying, right? The next generation needs to do better kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
The
yeah.
challenge is the challenge I've spoken to so many people about is it's funny with a lot of successful people I talk to, especially who are first generation successful,
Mhm.
is there seems to be a lot of talk around the third generation loses it.
I
It's
mean,
like, why should
yeah,
like
I
you and I
think
work so hard and then like say the second or third generation, they're the ones driving Lamborghinis and flying
I
private
know. Yeah.
and voting on yachts.
Yep. Yep.
Only to blow it all.
I mean, yeah, it's not surprising though, right? I mean, I guess statistically it's
While I
like,
eat instant noodles.
yeah. Well, you know what? Like one of my friends, like they're that family, they're worth like I don't even know, probably 9, 10 digits, if not more. Because again, like you and I said, they don't show off.
Mhm, mhm,
However, these are the kind of people that they have beautiful houses, multiple houses, so you kind of know where they are. However, they don't wear, designer
mhm,
belts and
mhm,
flashy things, and they have
mhm,
decent cars, but not like, super cars all the time. And these are the people that, you can go anywhere, have a simple meal together, and they'll be like, oh my God, we were in Turkey last week and we scored like three t-shirts for $5 US. And they get excited about that, and then the next day we'd be texting each other and be like, hey, so what's new today? And they're, oh, no, nothing. And, just closed a $120 million commercial space in Texas
mhm,
again.
mhm,
Like, like that's the conversation and the mindset of the people that I want to surround myself with
mhm, mhm.
is, they're very comfortable in their own skin. There is
Yeah.
no point to be like, I've done this, I've done that, I have this, I have that.
Mhm.
It's just solid. And that's what solid means to me. So,
Fabulous. Now let's talk about security because you
mhm,
invest in I don't know how many locations. Can you paint some broad brushes how you invest in like 10 states and all the countries in the UK? Are you
yeah,
partnered? Are you owning direct? What can you tell
yeah,
me?
yeah. So having good accountants and lawyers
Mhm,
to start is really, really good. So if you're Canadian like me, meaning Canada is your main domicile, obviously having a proper structure starting as a Canadian company is
mhm,
very, very crucial. And
mhm,
then leverage that to own into the different countries. Because me personally, I don't like to own things in my personal name
mhm,
because you do become a target. And from an asset and income perspective, there are just way, way, way more benefits doing it that way.
mhm.
And so that's how we've actually grown over time as well. Yeah.
Now tell me about your investments in like the 10 states or in the UK.
Mhm.
Like you have houses, you have commercial,
Yeah.
what is it you're developing,
Cool.
rent to
Well, I
owns?
mean, the last opportunity that we just actually went into and that we closed at the end of April there is a 228 unit apartment complex right outside of Houston, Texas.
So you were
And
buying real estate when I was asking you what you're doing in Houston.
that was no, that was April. We saw each other at the lounge because we were going on a Disney cruise from Miami. And the funny thing is, again, I am one of the partners on that deal back in April when we closed, and I'm not the main one. I'll say that.
Mhm,
Um, quite a bit of learning there too, though. Happy to share. What happened was we were actually in Bali when we closed on that deal too,
mhm,
and so that's what's really cool about it. And in the UK, we started out, and oh, you know what? This might be a good time to also share that every new market that I go into, I don't go big, big right off the bat, even
mhm,
though we have the capacity, we have the ability
mhm,
to look at bigger deals. Whenever it's a brand new market, remember that whole SMP concept. Any market that I go into, depending on our final goal with that market, regardless, I will always test it out first with a smaller deal. And so For example, in 2017, when I first got into the UK market, I still went into purchasing much smaller single family properties. And over there, they call it buy to let. So it's not a property manager, it's a letting agent. The word let,
Oh.
like let's go, let means rent, basically.
Hmm.
So basically, buy to let is buy to rent, meaning income properties for us, effectively, or rental property.
Hmm. It's so
So
funny that
it's
we speak
really
the same
interesting.
language.
I know. And lawyer is always solicitor, and real estate agent is always estate agent, which is very funny sounding to me. It was like learning a brand new language almost. So, anyways, and so we started out still purchasing smaller properties in Scotland, because Scotland is like the buy to let capital in the UK. And I
Mhm.
think it's a cultural thing. Over 68% of the Scottish people, they still rent.
Wow.
And the properties are not that expensive. That's the thing. I remember my jaw just about dropped. In 2017, I remember our very first property.
Hmm.
You want to guess how much we bought it for?
No idea.
2017. I'll give you timeline. 2017. 2 bedroom, 1 bath, about 800 square feet
Good
property.
size. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's enormous for Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to guess how much we bought it for?
2017. We're talking pounds? Or can I give you Canadian?
You can give me Canadian.
Scotland? What city?
Glasgow.
Okay, so a big city.
Yep.
800
Just
square
wild
foot.
guess.
400,000?
400,000. Okay. For $400,000, I could have bought almost five. And that's just it. And this is why I always say, again, we go from goal SMP, right? So our goal is just to build a foundation, because as we know, every time you set up
Right.
a proper structure, there's already overhead year after year
Hmm.
between
Hmm.
legal and accounting minimum.
Right.
And so at the very least, the portfolio needs to wash its own face. And so that was the first approach. And every single new market that we go into, we do that. And so it's just that, in the US now, like I said, I've been in 10 different states so far, and the last deal happened in Texas. However, over the last few years, I've been in Arizona, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio. We've lent into Florida, Georgia, Nevada. I'm missing a
Hmm.
couple, New York, missing one, missing one, missing one. Anyways, it'll come to me, and I'll just blur it out in a bit. But the point is, it doesn't matter which market we go to, because following the process, the market is second to last. It always has everything to do with the business plan. And
Hmm.
again, that's the thing. Maybe because scary with you guys are real estate investors yourself, so the way you look at things is a little bit different. However, most accountants, they are never going to care about, hey, how many properties do you have? Or how many doors do you have? What they will do though is, when they get your reports from your bookkeepers or from you directly, and your business is not performing, they're going to ask you, why is it not performing? What's going on? That's dig deeper into it. And that's my entire philosophy, is that at the end of the day, the number that matters is that final number in your financial report.
Hmm. Now, we've talked a lot about private lending, and there's a lot of private lending in the news for all the wrong reasons. I
For all the wrong
don't think
reasons.
there's any positive news around private lending. Now, so you've probably read about this stuff. Like the stuff on Claire Drage is quite public now, so I don't think there's anything wrong
Mhm.
with just saying that. Now,
Mhm.
now you've probably have you read the stories? You've been following the story. So what do you?
I'm familiar, not following
Okay,
anymore.
okay.
Yeah.
What is it you? Because what I'd like to extract from you for the benefit of the listeners is what have you done private lending wise that keeps you out of trouble, making money, hopefully,
Mhm.
versus how all this financial devastation.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I mean, we've always, and in full transparency, I've also lost money private lending as well.
Hmm.
And in the past, I've actually lent to Claire's organizations too. However,
Oh.
did decide to end that relationship back in 2021. And I think it's because having gone through a few losses, especially the major one once again back in 2016, is that you kind of learn to how to spot the signs a little bit. And
Hmm.
obviously, the easiest one is delinquencies. But
Hmm.
how do we actually, continue to thrive in the lending area is
Hmm.
the deal itself is great. The real
Hmm.
estate itself is a good collateral as long as you know how to crunch the numbers.
Sorry,
However,
Tim,
over
just want to pause
time,
you there. When you said
yeah,
delinquency, it means like you're not getting your interest payments on time.
exactly,
Or worse, like
exactly.
when the term is over and
So
you're not getting your money.
exactly, late
Yeah,
payments, delay payments of any
right.
kind, principal and interest, or both. Yeah,
And that was what was happening to you?
that was what was starting to happen. Yes, like
Yeah,
things were not getting delivered as promised.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like red flag.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, the funny thing though, sometimes not deliver as promised in terms of payments is actually a small red flag for me these days. The medium red flag now is when they miss the payment, there's zero communication,
Hmm.
zero acknowledgement on their part automatically.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that's when it starts.
Oh
And
yeah.
then the bigger red flag is when there's communication, once you've had to chase them down, you come to a new agreement and they still don't honor it. Then that's when you really
Oh,
know.
that's bloody flag.
Yeah, basically at that point. And so again, and this is why I think from a lending standpoint, we've learned to just be be a lot more cautious. And we always say trust and verify.
Hmm.
And so the thing about private lending is, the bigger picture is how much in, how much out, how long, and how is my money secured. And so the collateral is definitely very important
Hmm.
in the sense that you want to make sure that your agreement is definitely on title
Hmm.
one way or another, depending on the instruments that you use, whether it's a mortgage document, it's a promissory note, it's got a GSA attached to it, or it's got
Hmm.
a PPSA attached to it, or any other sort of collaterals that you can use to put against the lien.
Hmm.
And obviously, again, everybody's risk tolerance is still a little bit different. And so again, from a loan to value standpoint, you get to really decide how you want to maneuver that. However, I will always say that I will not go into a third, and I don't encourage any of my students to consider a third position one way or another. No
Hmm.
postponement either, and it has to be just very cut and dry. And obviously an educated investor is able to look at the person asking to borrow the money on how sound their exit strategy is and their timeline is. Because as we know, time is everything. However, that also means time is indeed money, especially in an investment deal.
Hmm.
And so the longer it takes, the more delay that it incurs, the more profit margin gets eaten away.
Hmm.
And if the borrower does not have other means and access to funding, then it's eating effectively into your collateral. That is the protection of your money.
Hmm.
And so that still comes down to how well educated the lender is in that particular case.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, the thing about that though is whenever I'm either lending or borrowing money myself right now, I still want to just really get to know people. Like I like to say that I slow date a lot of people because I want to make sure that our values align first and foremost. And of course, when it comes to the actual deal itself, yes, your money can be parked against the subject property as collateral,
Hmm.
or maybe it can be parked against their another property that actually would make you feel safer. And that when I say feel, I don't mean it's a feeling. I actually mean that, for example, if the subject property after you put in the money is 95% loan to value and you're feeling a little iffy, well, then don't do it. Trust your gut and then ask them, do you have another property as collateral? Maybe after you've lent your money and the loan to value on that new subject
Hmm.
property or the collateral is only 80% loan to value and you can sleep better at night, great.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people, they're very stuck on, it's this deal. They're only asking money and they're only offering this property as collateral. Well, yes, it's just like asking price is for reference. It doesn't mean that that's what you
Hmm.
buy it at the end of the day.
Yeah, while you're discussing like properties, when you mentioned exit plan, so one of the big stories out there is the folks who defaulted. They own like 600 houses for, and I'm just gonna do a quick share screen so folks on YouTube can follow along as well. Like exit plan, like for example, like the folks who are investing up north, one of their main
Hmm.
markets was Sault Ste. Marie.
Hmm.
Just again, quick Google, Sault Ste. Marie today's population is about 71,000,
Hmm.
and it actually shrunk from
Yeah.
2021. So to me, this is not a growing this there's something wrong economically fundamentally with the city for
Hmm.
investment.
Hmm.
So if you have a shrinking population, that means there's less demand for real estate. There's a decreasing demand for real estate, which will hinder one's ability to exit a
Hmm.
property in Sault Ste. Marie.
Hmm.
Also, it's a small city; it's 71,000.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I cannot
Yeah.
believe how many people land on these deals.
Yeah. Scary. So
Right? So, I think you qualify as an expert. Would you lend, invest in a city with a shrinking population?
personally, I would not, especially if my main asset class is real estate.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not sure what business plan or hypothesis would work, especially if it's around real estate investment
yeah.
in a shrinking
So
population, in an
it
area with shrinking population.
beats me. And again,
Right.
I mean, that's the thing that, we are constantly teaching our students to think. And the other side of all of this, as I keep going back to
Hmm.
the undereducated, I don't want to call them uneducated because you never know. Um, Undereducated investors, I think they haven't quite developed what we call the ROI mindset yet.
Hmm.
Because a true investor, a true entrepreneur, the question that we ask ourselves is not how much it's going to cost us, but it's how much it's going to make us after obviously all the proper due diligence is done.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think a lot of people, because they just have this blind belief, like I did, that real estate is an amazing asset class. And as long as I just park my money there, it's just going to grow long
Hmm.
term. And that was part of my origin story, as you know, because before financial education, I lost also every last penny in my savings by putting my money into a commercial development syndication in Saskatchewan back in '09. And
Oh.
so that's how I lost all my hard-earned money from my 80-hour-a-week job. And that was really what prompted me to go to a seminar and start learning differently.
Hmm.
But that's the thing, because at the time, and that's the way we were brought up, it's not the investor mindset, is okay, I have this much money. What can I afford to buy now if I want to buy something? And so I think that also creates a lot of trouble and a lot of hurdles for many, many undereducated people. I mean, I love the fact that they are taking action. I love the fact that they do believe that real estate is a great asset class. However, it's just that, you know what? Not all of those situations work out in the long term for everyone, unfortunately.
Tim, you're running out of time. You have time for a few more questions?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, do you trust your talent? Do you help vet deals? Do you help your members vet deals?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do mentorship programs is what we call, and we are very, very tailored. Like I said, it's not one size fits all.
Right, right, right.
And so what happens is that when the students, get inducted, we actually have an entire student journey graph on our website as well, is that people know because we have 1 and 2 year full immersion programs. And the reason why we do that is because, unlike you, English is not my first language. I'm not a CBC. I'm not Canadian born.
Hmm.
I'm a
Hmm.
Taiwanese boy and I came here when I was 17 years old. Basically, English was a brand new language to learn. However, I think I learned quicker than the average person was because I moved to Canada. I am now in this environment. I'm immersed in it. I got to go to school. I got to survive. I got to thrive. And so it forced me to grow that way. And so, you know, we have a full curriculum that basically has people doing one-on-one consultations from day one, and we make the recommendations based on their SMP, and they start the curriculum,
Hmm.
and then throughout the curriculum, there's, the group coaching, and then there's the individual mentorship as well. So once they build their foundation in terms of knowledge, then they will be able to select their one-on-one mentors, and the one-on-one mentors work with them in their chosen markets on their chosen strategies so that they can see the proof of concept of what
Hmm.
they're learning.
Hmm.
And so in that process, when the students are actually analyzing deals,
Hmm.
they're able to reach out to their mentors, during and after also.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's one thing that novices have difficulty with is like I'm cheap, so I naturally comparison shop like crazy. Like I'm looking to buy golf clubs for my son, so I'm on Facebook Marketplace, I'm on Amazon, I'm on Temu.
Yeah.
I'll probably look at AliExpress next
Yeah.
for the same set of clubs. We're gonna get the best deal. My point is
Yeah.
that some investors simply have not done the comparison shopping
Mhm.
to compare
Yeah.
deals because like if all else the same, take the deal for example that has less risk, right?
Yeah.
Say it's the less return as the other one, but you have to look at many of them to know what a
Hmm.
deal looks like. And I think
Hmm.
that's where a lot of beginners are short, and that's
Hmm.
where mentorship coaching can be really helpful as long as it's
Hmm.
qualified coaching and mentorship.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And we can probably go
Yeah.
on forever how people like Vince and Brooke become
Yeah.
coaches and mentors.
Yeah.
But I know
For
you got to
sure.
go. But
Yeah.
let's
All
talk
good.
about you have a conference coming up, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Tell me about it.
So yeah, so it's what we call Invest Ed. It's our largest event of the year, and it caters to investors from all walks of life, different stages of experience and portfolio sizes. So, anybody that is still possibly living in their parents' basement, all the way to people that probably already have millions and millions of dollars in their portfolio, whether, they want to get started, they want to scale, they want to protect. That's what the conference is for. It's actually on our website as well. And we have our master investor workshop there too. So if you click on Invest Ed right in the middle, next to it. Yeah,
Oh,
invest
there
that.
it is. Okay.
You, yeah.
Yeah. With a big picture of Vince on the
So,
on the landing page.
who you talk to? Yeah. So it's next weekend now. It's
Yeah,
happening very
October 4th to
fast.
6th. Yeah.
Hmm.
And tell me about the conference. 3 days. Holy cow.
Yeah, it's 3 full days, and this year we are actually doing a full conference style delivery as well. So every single day in the morning, there are two tracks happening at the same time. Because most conferences we go to, it's one giant room, and then you kind of just stay there, and they will rotate the speakers on the stage.
Hmm.
However, what we're doing is because, like I said, we are catering to people that are aspiring investors all the way to very experienced and high level investors. And so we have 11 different tracks for people to choose from. And most people
Oh.
will walk away with 6 full tracks. And we have subjects anywhere from, how to invest with a significant other, and that's always a juicy one. How to recruit and build your power team in any market, or how
Hmm.
to continue to grow a sustainable portfolio in any market conditions, or how to raise and manage other people's money effectively. Those are the panel sessions. However, the deep dive sessions would have subjects like, how to make the best offers. Is it cash, or is it term, or is it both? And then we also have, how to really leverage seller financing and how to speak to it, present it, structure your deal that way to create win-win. Or one of the most popular topics that I know a lot of people want to go to is how to scale your portfolio to create $50,000 a month in income. And so there's all different levels that are taken care of. And as I mentioned, Gala Night, you see the award winners from last year, and we're feeding everyone. Like, people don't have to scramble and run out to grab breakfast or lunch, that sort of thing, because we want to make sure that, the networking component is there. So many people come to these conferences, want to make new connections, deepen existing relationships, and we want to make sure that they're not spending the time ordering Ubers or running out to be like, hey, I need to get a burger so that I
Hmm.
can come back and maximize my time at the conference there. So we've thought about a lot of our own experiences attending
Hmm.
different conferences.
Hmm.
And that is the final decision, is that they get fed also. And there's going to be some bonus sessions, prizes, and surprise guest speakers as well this year.
Oh.
So. Yeah.
How much is the conference?
Yeah. So the conference, the basic seminar pass is 697,
Well, that's cheap for
and
3 days and
that's for
food.
two people for 3 days.
That's
Exactly.
for two people?
That's for two people.
I thought you were gonna say that was
Yep.
for one.
No, that's for two people. Yep. Yep.
My word.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I see you have an advanced. You have an
Yes.
advanced
We
option for
also,
registration. Oh, so for
yes.
listeners' benefit, I'm actually on the website right now going through it with Tim can see what I'm doing, and this will all be on the YouTube, of course. Advanced seminar pass.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's for two people.
Yes.
6 meals.
Yeah.
Wow.
So two
Oh, okay.
breakfasts
So advanced is
because,
more
yeah,
for intermediate to experienced investors.
exactly. So the price is exactly the same.
Oh, okay. It's just two different streams, but it's the same price.
Exactly.
Wow, this is wild.
Yeah.
Okay. And for listeners, I'll have the show. I'll link in the show notes. Yeah, it's fantastic. And oh, and where is it? Yeah, we haven't talked about where is
Yeah.
it.
It's right there, actually. The Sheraton Toronto Airport Hotel and Conference Center, 801 Dixon. So anybody in the GTA, really, really easy to get to.
Yeah, it's just by the airport.
Hmm. It is.
Fabulous. And yeah, I'll
Yeah.
be there Saturday night.
Yes.
Do I have to dress up?
It is a formal night, so yes,
Oh
I would say
man.
absolutely. I know,
All
you know
right.
what? It's I am not a big fan of having to get all dressed up either. However, I do it. I do it for the community once a year.
Man.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody
I'll figure
comments that,
something out.
yeah. Just put on a nice suit. I'm sure you have one.
Yes, I have, but I haven't worn it in like
Yeah.
years. I have a couple. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Trustyourtalent.ca. That's where to find it. And then on the website, you have Invest Ed along the top. Really easy to find. Again, folks, I'll have the information in the show notes. And all right, Tim, any final words? Like again, we're in real estate winter, not so much for your
Yeah.
150 really successful clients and 500-person community. But yeah, like I said, in Ontario, a tenanted property sells at a discount. so,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
consider it real estate winter. At least in my context, it's real estate winter. Do you have any
Yeah.
final words for the listener out there?
I do. Again, it's not sexy. However, if if anybody's goal really like mine is to gain that true freedom through getting enough financial resources to give you that, then focus on financial education. I mean, real estate is an amazing asset class. However, really focus on financial education first so
Hmm.
that when you actually pick an asset class, you know exactly how to make it work for you much better.
Hmm.
And yeah, because I always say, and this is something that I really learned when I first got started as well, is that when you learn how money works, you'll know how to make it work, whether the economy is going up, going down, or going sideways.
Hmm.
And so, and that's exactly what I've experienced myself for the last almost 15 years now since I got educated. So that would be definitely my experience talk.
You should have your own TED Talk. This is your audition tape for TED Talk.
Yeah.
Tim, thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
Thanks
we
for
can't wait
having
to
me
see you
again.
on at the conference at the awards gala.
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to invest in real estate from scratch, my team teaches beginners how to use the #1 investment strategy that I personally use in a virtual free training class every month. Go to investortraining.ca/YouTube to register for our next class. The link's also in the description as well. I publish at least 2 to 3 videos a week here, so subscribe if you want to keep learning from seasoned investors like myself and my guests. And if you're just starting out, feel free to ask questions and comment below, and I do the best to answer each of those comments and questions myself. Again, if you're ready to learn the nitty-gritty about real estate investing from a professional investor, register for our next virtual class. That's at investortraining.ca/YouTube. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.